Gather, veterans. It's time to join the fight. The long war begins.
This is The Long War. I'm Robbie B, and joining me once again are my partners in crime, Kenny Boucher, Stephen Ford, and Mike Haspel. What's up, guys?
Yo, dog, great to be here.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Check those corners.
So the title of tonight's episode is New Flyer Rules, OP, question mark. And I think there's a lot of questions going on out there about like the new rules, if they apply to certain things, if you can just not play with them. And I feel like we're going to touch, hit all that in tonight's episode. If not, I mean, we have a stack of stuff to talk about tonight, right, Haspel?
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Like we're going to be hitting a lot of information. A lot has happened, but this is like the GW new direction, which is fantastic.
If they keep this up, we're gonna have to go to a fucking 4-hour podcast. I mean,
yo, that's exactly like I'm still having to like soak in data and everything else from previous and still what's going on to compile more onto an already pretty active brain. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's always, I mean, I guess by the time this actual episode of the podcast comes out, there'll be a really interesting article over on Spikey Bits where I looked at a lot of trends and stuff on Google, and literally the science is there to support it, that this is the most interesting time in the past 12 years in the hobby. And
scientifically proven to be the most interesting time in 40k.
So that's going to be a really interesting article. Look for that one over on Spikey Bits here. It's immediately, just go there right now. Just forget about driving and things like that.
This podcast is dead to you. Stop the car, as Juice would say. Get out of the car.
Yep.
No, I think we got a good show tonight. We got plenty to talk about. So let's jump right into it. Let's hit up the Tabletop Market Watch. Obviously, we've got the new Warhammer Quest version 2016, the Silver Tower, coming out. That's $150 board game. We didn't really talk about that on the live stream tonight. What do you think about it?
$150 board game?
Yeah.
Does it come with a Night Titan?
No.
Shit's got to come with something.
It comes with a Chaos Sorcerer.
Okay, I'm so glad that Chaos Sorcerers are now valued at like $75.
And a Minotaur. But
yeah, I on that I'm kind of torn, because I'm like, you know what? If it's like the old Hero Quest, there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of playtime in that game. Like a ridiculous amount.
I feel like I know we both played Hero Quest back in the day. Hero Quest was more of like an RPG with a GM.
Right.
This is the GM is technically one of the players gets chosen, kind of like a dealer in Texas Hold'em.
Or like Mansions of Madness.
Yes.
Where one of the players is okay.
You guys are speculating, though, right? Like, this is speculation.
No, this is real. This is a real thing.
No, I mean, you guys are speculating on how it's going to play, right?
No, this is real.
Okay, so how long do you predict a game of this Talisman or this? What was it called? Hero Quest.
Yeah, Hero Quest.
Warhammer Quest.
Warhammer Quest.
How long do you speculate this like a game of this would play? Like, you're talking about game value. Like, is it like 4 dudes can sit down and play for 2 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah.
Probably 2 hours. There's
2 hours, 3 hours.
Okay.
It's definitely got an RPG aspect feel to it, like kick down the room. It's happening in the Silver Labyrinth, the Silver Towers of Tzeentch. So it's a maze. You basically teleport into a room, and then you teleport to a next room, and they're all different. And the board basically assembles itself in front of you. It's kind of.
It's called the Silver Tower of Tzeentch, and it's like all ridiculous teleporting from room to room.
Yeah.
Wow, how old is that? That reminds me, because I just obviously read all the Wheel of Time books, and like you guys have been talking about the Silver Tower and this and that. I'm like, damn, that's like the Tower of Genji in like book 10 of the Wheel of Time series. But I feel like book 10 of the Wheel of Time series came out after all this. This might be one of the rare times that GW got bit instead of GW pretending that someone bit them.
I feel like I have to go more retro and go. It reminds me of the Ghost Tower of Inverness, that D&D module.
Bringing it back. Those are the days I can't even say that I've been a part of, but I remember some old heads that I used to be playing D&D with refer to that castle.
Yeah, you guys remind me of Ready Player One with some of that shit.
I was not allowed to play D&D when I was a child.
Oh, my mom, after one Phil Donahue thing, threw out all my D&D stuff. I was
really.
It was,
dude.
yeah, it was a thing, and then the whole vampire thing, you know, where like the Vampire the Masquerade, like people were like shooting each other and like drinking each other's blood, and it was like a thing. Like my mom was like not having it.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, they might have had something with that because it's not like, okay, obviously D&D people are at the bars getting twisted and beating their wives because they're too drunk. But at the end of the day, they are really maladjusted socialites if they're still playing D&D weekly by the time they're our age.
Nah, dude. No.
If you have a character sheet that goes back 12 years, you're probably
awesome.
That's a good thing for it. So yeah, I mean it's an interesting looking game. You know, there's a gameplay. There's a whole thing where you're trying to accomplish these tasks. You know, monsters, mobs spawn in rooms. There's random occurrences, which it's a 2 dice and one's 10s, one's actually. So it's kind of like the boon of a mutation chart, but it's like random occurrences, like Indiana Jones pitfall traps and stuff. So it's definitely a really cool RPG theme to it, but then again, stuff like this I feel like is competing with the RPGs where you get the stuff ready to go out of the box, you know. So
but you have sick miniatures that you can paint up and hobby out on. No, we're not talking Orc Canopy and the Top Hat from Monopoly.
No, but I mean, I think the price point is still a little high for this kind of game, but it does have a lot of play value, and the miniatures, it means GW.
How sick, we obviously unquestionably the best miniature making company in the world, but how's the board look though? That's where
it looks dope. It's the Space Hulk kind of it's stamped, embossed, PVC or UV coated, hotness. You know, the rooms look super dope. The graphics are tight.
It's hard though to justify that price point when this like new double Night Titan box just dropped. Like.
Yeah, that's where my head was at.
Well, it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for a big box game like, you know, Twilight Imperium or something, I feel like that's who they're going after. They're not going after the crowd that's going to just buy this like Betrayal at Calth, where you're just going to buy this and use the models. And, it also has a pretty decent board game, but nobody plays it. They're going for the board game crowd with this. They're going for that premium Mansions of Madness, Twilight Imperium, that kind of an experience. That's who I think they're targeting.
Well, you guys would know, nerds.
Well, and I gotta say that there's like a barbarian chieftain in there.
I'm back in it.
That's one of my favorite minis ever because he's so retro 80s. Like, he's got the shoulder pads and like he's not wearing any armor except these monster shoulder pads.
Literally,
it's
just for style.
It's the spot that always gets hit when you're in combat, obviously.
And he has a sneer on his face that's just freaking perfect. I mean, I was just like, that miniature is fantastic. It's my favorite one in the whole game.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff that they hobbied on, and then the rumors out there is that this is going to be something that's going to be at big box stores. You know, there's going to be like those little cardboard end caps full of Warhammer Quest and the Battle for Vedra.
$150 might be a little excessive though for to get the non GW chip individuals in the world interested. Like, I don't see that shit selling even one fucking copy in a Walmart.
Well,
no.
Yeah. I don't at a Walmart. No, at an FLGS. I mean, there are other $100 games out there. I mean, Cthulhu Wars was a premium, very expensive game, but it was beautiful. It was worth it, and people responded. And I feel like that's who they're targeting. They're targeting but there are other games that they're competing with that kind of been around for a while, like Descent by FFG comes to mind. That is now granted, I haven't played the new Warhammer Quest, but it seems like it does the same type of thing, you know. And there was one of the D&D board games that was something about Drizzt. I don't remember which one it was, but that one was, kind of the same thing. You know, it's a dungeon crawl board game, so the price point's probably a little high on this.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the thing, but they're devoting considerable resources to it. You know, pretty much the whole White Dwarf, from what I can tell, is completely stocked with this thing, and they're going after retailers trying to get them to buy multiple copies. So they're making a stab at it. So we'll see. We'll kind of see how it sorts out. If I don't think it's going to be a dread fleet by any means, but I just don't see it being as successful, at least in hobby stores, as a 40k product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would have to agree. But having said that, I'm gonna fucking buy it. So.
It's like the analogy we used earlier. Like GW is in the world now, where like if you're a content creator, you got to create content every week. They're kind of doing that, but every week you can't have a smash, airbrush hack video. Sometimes it's going to be a airbrush hack video followed up by putting leaves on a base video. Sometimes you just got to get that content out there. Like this, they put a lot of effort into this, but this might not be, the talk of the town like how the new second powers were. This isn't going to but they don't need to. They don't need to put out a literal smash hit every time. They have enough capital, enough money, enough success, enough brand. They can put just a million things out, and over the next couple of years, they'll just make a shitload of money, and then they'll revise the rules and make a shitload of money again.
Yeah. And I feel the target they're going for is that weekly gamer market. The guys that get around and maybe don't role play, but play a board game every week. They're going to play a different campaign part of this new Warhammer quest every week, because there were rumors that broke out that in the rule book there were already rules for models that did not come with the game. So the opportunity for expansion is obviously there.
I just wonder what kind of numbers GW when they create a game like this, how many gamers are you trying to hit? How many units are you trying to sell? Like, it's not like a full army where, when they do a new mold, they have to sell X amount of hundreds of thousands of units to get in. Like, do they just look at this like, hey, look, all we really want to reach is 75,000 people, or is that, 10,000 people, something like that? Or do they go into this thinking, hey, how many, do we need as many people as playing 40k is what I guess I'm trying to get at.
Well, just to give you an idea of, kind of a behind the veil kind of thing when it comes to at least limited editions from Games Workshop, let's take the recent Primarch book from Black Library on Gilliman. It was limited to 2,500, I believe, copies. It sold out, I guess, eventually in like a week. It was $65, right? So $65 times 2,500 is $162,500 for one single print run of a product that was basically put out over a week. In addition to the other 40k stuff, the other digital downloads, the other, whatever books were coming out normally from Black Library that week. So that kind of gives you an idea of the numbers. A lot of people want to hate on Games Workshop, but when you got a company that actually has a profit, I think last year 117 million or something, like 117 million dollars is a lot of money to wrap your head around, and that was their profit. So it's like, yeah, it might be down, but it's still $117 million.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's kind of like when I hear football, NFL football players like, oh, well, the team wants to give me a $75 million contract for 5 years, but I really want a $90 million contract, so I'm just going to hold out this. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, if you have $75 million and you're asked for 90, you are literally not going to be able to. That's like me saying, hey, I really want $13 for this cheeseburger, but fine, I'll take 11. I am not going to see that cost instantly. You know what I mean? Like, get this shit out of here.
Yeah. So we definitely gone hard in the paint on this game system. We'll see if it's successful. But wasn't there like another tabletop marketplace released today or this?
There's another one today specifically. Is that Talisman Horus Heresy? Ooh. And you guys heard me talk about this when it came out on Steam, and it is essentially Talisman, the same board game that's been around for 35 years, that originally Games Workshop put out. Now FFG has the license for the tabletop version of this, but Talisman Horus Heresy just dropped on iOS, and it is 40% off today. So for the near future, it's going to be 40% off. It is literally $3.99. So
yeah, if you got $5 burning a hole in your pocket in an iDevice.
Classic ancient Chinese proverb: spend that money before you spend that money.
Yeah, it's like if you care about Horus Heresy at all and you've heard of Talisman, give these guys $3.99. I mean, we want more 40k games. The more 40k games is not a bad thing, even if they're like reskins of existing games, which is what this is. This is a reskin of Talisman. There's not a whole lot different with it, but it is beautiful. It is a gorgeous game. And it doesn't even take up that much room. I think it's like 120 meg download or something like that for an iOS. And you get when next time you're stuck at the airport, you can play this. And I feel that it shines. Like some of the drawbacks I had with it on Steam was that it was a little bit difficult to play with everybody like sitting at their own PC. But this thing shines on a tablet because then you can just sit around a table and pass it to the next player, just like you were playing a board game.
Wow, I like it.
Yep, that is definitely really cool.
We've also got a couple other things coming up real quick. Warhammer 40k Regicide, which you also heard me talk about. That was released on Steam. That's kind of a battle chess version of 40k chess, and it has modified stuff in there. I played with it for a bit on Steam, and I really enjoyed it. There's some arguments on the forums that the random number generator is borked in the favor of the computer and that it cheats blatantly, and that may or may not be true. But I looked at it as like a variant of some chess problems. Have you
ever played against the computer on chess games on hard? It literally always wins. Just get over it.
Well, what I liked about this was that it's chess, but in this game, a queen. A pawn can take out a queen from range because you can literally shoot at other units. So you're not limited to just taking out, a thing by using a chess move. So it added an extra dimension to the game. You can throw grenades. There's psychic powers. Again, if you like 40k, if you like chess, this might be something you want to look at. This drops on May 19th. They're also going to be discounted at $3.99. And for the first 12 days, if you buy Regicide on iOS or PC, you will get all the DLC that's available for free. So that's a pretty nice promotion.
Oh, damn, that is tight.
No, that's not bad at all. Speaking of some upcoming hotness, the end of the month, the 28th, right, Haspel?
Yeah, on the 28th, yeah.
The 28th. I think that's Memorial Day weekend, at least here in the States. The GW will be celebrating its 100th store opening in North America, which is, I think, Dallas-Fort Worth store. But anyways, any of those stores you can go to, there will be a limited edition Space Marine that you can purchase. Apparently, it's only in-store. It's only that day. You got to spend like $100. Not sure if it's free or you get to buy it at $100, et cetera, et cetera. It's supposed to be a remake of the original Space Marine captain from way back in the day. He had like he had that plume, kind of like that Roman plume, and he had like the gladius sword and a bolt pistol. He was Ultramarines, but he looked pretty dope. I guess his name's like Centos, but we're not sure on that 100% yet.
Yeah.
But it seems pretty cool. Congrats to GW. Getting back up to that 100 store level in North America.
Yeah. And I think this is rumor, of course, not confirmed, but I think it's if you spend $100, you can get them for free, and if you don't, you can buy them for like $20 or $30.
Oh, that sounds about right.
It's easy to spend $100 at a GW store. So.
Yeah,
well,
there's
you just go in there and pick up the Tower of Zinch, and you're done.
You're one codex and Tigurius away.
Yeah, 2 sets of hobby clippers and some glue.
Oh, that's rough.
Wow.
I got to throw in, though, that those hobby clippers, I resisted buying those, the new hobby tools, for a long time. I picked up all those elite hobby tools, and they're expensive, right? But I'm like, I've been using the same busted clippers for like 25 years now. So essentially, on that time scale, these $30 clippers are basically free.
If they break in the next 5 years, I'm gonna laugh so hard.
Yeah,
they cut like butter though, man.
They're amazing.
I
bought the scraper, the mold line scraper for $30, and I was like, this is pretty good. And then like just randomly grabbed my X-Acto knife when I couldn't find it and just started scraping mold lines off. I was like, I forgot for 1 penny.
Well, here's the way I looked at the mold line scraper. The first day I got it for $30, I was complaining about it, and I was with Rob at the game store, and I was making terrain for the game store, and I was complaining, going, "Oh man, my hobby knife would do this way better." And as I said that, it jumped off the model and scraped right across my finger. And you know what? Nothing happened. But if I had used my hobby knife, I'd have gone to the emergency room, and that would have been more than
fair point. Point taken, sir.
To back up the gentleman's claim, I changed my blade a couple days ago. I was finishing up some Necrons.
You mean the same blade you were using for 6 months?
Yeah, well, like a couple weeks. And very first thrust, got my thumb again. Ugh.
That's how it usually goes.
Yep. That's why I just keep 3 razor sharp at all times to keep me on my toes.
Yep, you got to. I can see that being a thing with you, though. So I feel like, do we have some other stuff to talk about? Some indie stuff, Houseful, or is that?
I think that was it for the Tabletop Marketplace.
Are we ready for the world famous webcast recap?
Yeah, we got a doozy right now too.
This is a good one.
Well, before we jump into the webcast recap, let's talk about the Long War Dice Bag one last time.
Oh yeah.
We got the Long War Dice Bag, the legendary item pouch of infinite holding, comboed with the fat sack of bits from Spikey Bits. We're in the final week of pre-sales. This will be the last time you can get the Long War Dice Bag for possibly the entire year, because we have plans to release some of the things that you saw on Kickstarter that you didn't have an opportunity to get all year by quarter. So by the time we come back around to the dice bag, it won't even be the same color. It'll probably be an entirely different product. So you definitely want to jump on to spikybits.com/Kickstarter. Follow any of the links you see anywhere that advertise it. And you're going to want to pick one up if you've been trying to get one. So definitely keep that in mind. Final week's pre-sales. Take it away.
All right. So starting off on the webcast recap, we've got Clay Cruz asking what our opinions were about the draft, Cult Mechanicus, and Skitarii facts that dropped. And if you've seen these, they were very short. It was basically you could put both of them on one page. I felt that it was fine. The only thing that was interesting, they said that, it clarified definitely that weapons fire in phases, even from the same unit, because they were saying, like, if the Cataphren destroyers fired their phosphor blasters and caused an unsaved wound, that would lower the cover save of the guys. Then if the same unit of Cataphren destroyers fired their grav cannons, then their grav cannons go at -1 cover save for that unit because of the phosphor weapons that fired before it. So that was the most interesting thing I saw in there. Everything else was pretty much straightforward and already covered by the rules.
Yeah, I wasn't too 100% impressed with those. I mean, it was good. There was some stuff in there that needed to be said, but I feel like rules is written, everything was on the up and up in there, right?
Yeah, that's how I felt. That it was
minor.
Like, okay.
So this is the first Codex FAQ then that's come out, or?
Yeah, the first Dex FAQ. And interestingly enough, they didn't cover, like, what I felt was the most interesting question they didn't cover, which was, and if you buy the Start Collecting set, it comes with the Tech Priest Dominus and a bunch of Skitarii stuff. So it's like, well, do you have to use 2 codices to play that? Or is the Tech Priest Dominus somehow part of Skitarii,
Yeah.
But they didn't really address that.
There's some weird stuff I've noticed too that's like that. Like there's this ridiculous, like I've been do my beats lab with my orcs, and every now and then I'll be like trying to add troop choices, and there's like this special unit of Gretchen. Like this one guy's special unit of Gretchen. It's from like Sanctus Reach or something like that, or Red Wall or something like that. It's like 10 more points in the Gretchen squad. I was like, oh yeah, this will be great. And I swear to God, I stare at it, all the special rules. I'm like, well, what makes it 10 more points? I'm just like staring. I'm like, oh, he's got the attack squig. That's only 5 points. This is literally 5 extra points, and it's literally exactly the same as current Gretchen are, but 10 more points. So there's definitely some weird things going on with like, yo, you can get this or you can get this, and they're different rules. Do you play them under the same codex or not? And are they even the same thing anymore? And I think GW kind of answered that with their FAQ question of like, can you play out-of-print stuff? You can if you want to, and so I'd say just make it work. GW seems to design rules with the intent of, play it as it like play through.
And that is a perfect segue to our next question. We had a question, and I forgot to write who asked it, but it was about the new psychic powers and asking our opinion whether or not it was good for all the chapters, because the supplement only mentioned Codex Space Marines, but the cards that come with the psychic powers had Grey Knights, Space Wolves, Dark Angels, etc., and Blood Angels. So which one would we go with? And I felt like one of the things that we were talking about earlier was that if you look at the Blood Angels Codex, it says Codex Astartes, Blood Angels. And if you look at the Space Marines Codex, it says Codex Astartes, Space Marines. So I feel like when GW says Space Marines, they literally mean Loyalist Codex Astartes, because the only thing that's being left out is Chaos.
Yeah, and people can nitpick on the wording all they want, but at the end of the day, like I said, GW's FAQ is kind of showing their official stance is, come on, come on, guys. They're wearing power armor and they're Astartes. Like, that's quite clearly their intention at this point.
Yeah, so I feel like, go with what the cards say, and those psychic powers are good for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention the fact that they talk about that in the White Dwarf, in the advertisements in there as well. So I feel like that was definitely the way they were intending it, if it didn't come across in the supplement, because the supplement was pertaining towards, Adeptus Astartes Codex Space Marines specifically, I feel like.
Yeah. The next question is from Lau Stevenson, and he asks, what's a good case to transport 4 or more Imperial Knights? And I feel like that has to be caveated by, can you break the Knights in half? Like, do you have the waist magnetized? Because if you don't, that becomes a problem. If you have the waist magnetized, you can use a lot of different cases. If you don't have the waist magnetized, the best case I can recommend to you is most likely the Battle Foam Pack Air, which is my new favorite case. Because
that's the one I use to get all my shit across the country. But also another caveat is, like, what is your intent? Do you fly to a lot of events, or do you just drive to a lot of events?
Exactly.
If you fly, the Pack Air is going to be your best bet for sure, because I have a pretty solid 80% chance of getting that in overhead storage on a plane, and about 20% of the time they make me gate check it. And so you have to sweet talk a stewardess into holding it in her section up front, and I have an additional less than 50% chance of making that work. So,
Hassful is the end all be all to when and how you can manipulate all your different trays to get the most inside of it.
Yeah. So I magnetize everything, and to give you an idea, the way I build my knights, I magnetize the arms, I magnetize the waists, I take them all apart. Given the space that's inside a Pack Air, I could probably fit, I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said 10 Imperial Knights in there, because I could fit 4. I could probably fit 4 in a Pack 432.
Yeah,
everything is modular, everything is
back in the old days when I was real poor and I only had this one Battle Foam box, I would remember that old Khorne Demon army I had back in the old Gamescom days? I had 2 defilers, or 2 soul grinders. The legs were magnetized to the chassis. The chassis was magnetized to the body. I had 10 blood crushers. And even the riders and the blood crushers, the little blood letters, they were magnetized on tiny little magnets to the blood crushers. I had every little stupid thing can break down and have their own little spots in there. Because I was like, dude, I can only afford this one thing. Magnets, tack, pins, use them.
Yeah, my Grey Knights, people are shocked when they see it. I can hold 2,500 points of Grey Knights in an old GW case. And that's because all my Dread Knights come off their bases, they're magnetized to the bases, their legs are separate, magnetized, everything's magnetized. So I can just jam them in there. But obviously, if you've already glued your models together, you're kind of stuck.
That's not necessarily true. You could be using the barely tabletop method of hot glue, as we defined earlier.
You could actually just go to your event with unbuilt models and, or portions of unbuilt models and just hot glue gun everything.
Yeah. And then, as we determined, at the end of the day, you could just snap the stuff off the hot glue because it's pretty easy. Roll up the hot glue into a big, rubber band ball hot glue, melt it back down when you get home, cat hair, spilled Taco Bell sauce packets and all, and then reuse it.
Yo, you're good as new. As good as new. Actually, you know what I was thinking about is like, man, instead of breaking these off when they're like obviously room temperature, you could purposefully leave your models inside your hot trunks of your vehicles because there's nothing wrong with doing that.
No,
nothing bad.
they won't expand.
No, nothing bad at all. So what you can do is you purposefully leave it in the hottest day of the year, and then that way that works as the uncuring process. To get the super glue.
It's perfect. So when you come back from the event, leave the models in the car until the day before the next event.
And then your hot glue from the last previous event will be nice and pliable.
It'll be pulled up in the bottom of your trunk, perfectly able for you to scoop up. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing that could go wrong with this.
Mostly everything.
The last thing I have for the webcast recap is fantastic, and that's why it was left for last.
Oh yeah.
Evan Valdyke came up with a drinking game for the Long War, and I feel I have to disclaimer this, like, please be responsible because you will die if you try to do this.
I don't always drink, but when I do, if
I always
play
die.
this game, I get twisted.
Yeah, it's like the old 21 shots on your birthday, it's like, first off, anyone who in the 4 hours that they're celebrating their birthday drinks 21 shots made it to the hospital by the end of the night. So this is on that level, guys. Just remember.
Yeah, I feel like you should almost do this with beer instead of liquor because it's brutal. So you do, every time you do one drink, one shot, every time someone says literally, we don't do it for the money, but it takes money to do. Dog, or a wise man once said, or icy.
These are all legitimate. I will.
So this is, to clarify the rules, not to interrupt you, you're talking about listeners. If you're listening to the show with your buddies or by yourself, get your drinks out, get your shot glasses out, and begin playing while listening to this in the background. Not while driving to work, right? Though.
No.
Right.
No.
You can get out of your car, take your shots, and then that'll be fine.
You do 2 drinks every time somebody says hater's gonna hate or ain'ter's gonna ain't.
Ain't us, they hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because they ain't us. Or let's see here. I can't read my own handwriting on here, but Kenny talks about dreadnoughts. That's 2 shots. Or Rob mutes himself.
Pretty much going to happen at least once a show.
Somebody has technical difficulties.
Uh-oh.
Or says, I didn't mean to cut you off.
we should caveat the technical difficulty one with anytime Juice has technical difficulties, it's 2 shots. Anytime someone else, it's 3.
True story.
And then the 3 shots is if I talk about playing a guy who played the 3.5 edition of Chaos with Codex with like a marsupials, if we're all on the show and no one is missing, you have to do 3 shots.
Oh gosh!
Kick it off right.
Yeah, get started right.
You're like, this is gonna be a good one. Let's do this.
And every time I talk about other geek stuff that doesn't have to do with 40k.
Damn. You're looking at minimum on an average recording of the podcast 6 shots before we even get 30 minutes in.
I know it's brutal. That's why I said you got to do it with beer.
I also love Evan chimed in later and was like, "Oh, I can't believe I forgot. That's a bold move, Cotton."
That's right.
Ricky Bobby quotes are all equal to a drink because there's too many. It'll be too many to not die. So you just take a sip of a beer for any Ricky Bobby quote.
But yeah, that wraps it up for the webcast recap this week.
Nice. Well, let's jump into our commercial break, guys, and then talk about the meat and potatoes on the flip side.
Dear veterans, quickly make your way to thelongwar.net and find out how to reap your hard-earned spoils of this long war. For our allies at dicehead.com have rewarded us all with an extra 6% discount on all dicehead.com merchandise. So stock up, dear veterans, and enjoy.
And we're back. Rob, take it away, my man.
I feel like it would only be appropriate if the break actually had something about responsible drinking.
I have to come up with a new responsible drinking PSA.
Hello, folks. This is Kenny Boucher here.
When you're doing Jaeger shots.
I don't always drink, but when I do, I never remember the previous night.
I've never been passed out on a floor at Adepticon, ever.
I've never literally gone on about a salad for 45 minutes.
Yo, I was really
3 hours later.
I would have ate it. Anyways, so, hey, did you hear about this new codex called Deaths from the Skies?
Yeah, I have.
Apparently it's got some flyer rules in it that everybody's, I guess, got questions about. So first off, me and Haspel were talking about this on the webcast. So the flyer rules themselves, it does say in here that they do replace the flyer rules in the BRB, and there are some similarities. Like if you compare the two sections of the books, there are some similarities, and there's obviously some new things in here. They didn't really take anything out; they just kind of added to it. Now, and I'll definitely let Haspel talk about the dogfight phase because I didn't really get into it. I wanted to talk more about how this would kind of affect the game with, like, you know, in reference to competitive play and kind of what everybody's used to these days. But so if you haven't heard, there's basically 3 types of combat roles for flyers now, similar to battlefield roles, you know, in a formation table and things like that, or detachment rather. There's an attack flyer, there's a bomber, and there's a fighter. And as you can imagine, attack flyers go against the ground, right? So there's no penalty to shooting at the ground. A lot of times they might have strafing run, which we all should be pretty familiar with, I feel like. The bomber is another designation that sometimes gets some bonuses, definitely a ground attack. And fighters are designed for air-to-air because, you know, they're basically designed to take out other fighters. So there's some pluses and there's some minuses to each of those, and we'll handle that here in a second. But another thing that's different about each flyer, and I remember we talked about this on a couple shows ago, there's like 23 data sheets in this book that basically replace the ones that are in the current codexes out there, or supplements, I guess, in the case of some of these things. So there's a new pursuit value and agility value to each flyer. And pursuit is something that's also used in dogfights, which, you know, we'll get to here in a second. But agility is kind of the big one, because what's really cool about that is you use your agility value, you roll to equal or less than, and when you come onto the table for the first time, you know, either or any time from ongoing reserves or normal reserves, you get to make a break turn, or you can attempt to make a break turn because you have to roll to equal or under it. And you can make a 90-degree turn. You can just say, hey, I'm stopping right here, 12 inches in, 6 inches here, and try to turn 90 degrees.
Yeah, that is literally, as we talked about in the show, do you know what flyer benefits that the most?
I would have to say Helldrake for sure.
Helldrake, absolutely, all day, every day. Like, it's almost kind of like having 360/180 back, you know? And my thing, what I love about it the most is I feel like I'm still a solid enough player. Once you play with it enough and you get enough, you can always kind of get the flame that you want, even though it's 45. What's tough for me is to be able to vector strike something and then still be able to utilize the flamer to where I want it. You know, because in my opinion, a single vector strike from a vehicle like that, you got to try to get as many wounds as you can anywhere. So using all its attack characteristics is huge for me. Now being able to basically hit the brakes and let people fly right by it's going to come in clutch.
There's so many ways to utilize this. It's so tactical. The fact that you don't have to make a decision, like you don't have to put the model where you want it to be and then like prey on this roll. You get to just like, well, let's see if I can do the strategy while I'm moving. No, okay. Luckily, I came up with this other target. You know.
Mm-hmm.
It's really well thought out. It's real tactical.
Yeah, I'm super digging that part. And the Helldrake is a agility of 4, so you 4 or less than that, you know, you got a good chance there basically to pull it off. The pursuit value actually adds to your flat out, so you won't see it quite as much in.
And we want to, Rob, you and I pulled down a big comeback from a flat out and a Helldrake that barely made it.
Mm-hmm.
In Adepticon. So I mean, like, I'll take 4 extra inches.
Oh, I think we all would, if you know what I mean. But
Yo, for real.
it's just something to keep in mind there. I feel like, tactically. So another thing, and this is more far-reaching, I feel like, is there's a special rule called air superiority, and it says that if one player has flyers in reserve at the end of the dogfight phase, then they're said to have air superiority, or if only one player, right? So the dogfight phase ends before the turn even starts, right? It's an optional phase. We've talked about that, but think about that.
Is that anyone with any flyer, or do you have to have a flyer wing, like still at least 2 flyers?
Just any flyer in general.
So you get a whole for free special rule just for having a flyer when your opponent doesn't, which negatively impacts their reserves and positively impacts yours.
Yep, it would grant 1 to your reserve roll, and it negates 1 to their reserve roll as long as it's still in reserve.
I mean, I just can't even understand how huge that is. You are basically, I mean, I would say it's not automatically Codiez anymore. People build armies around getting pluses to their reserves and minusing other people's reserves, right? So, like, getting this just for free, so now you can look at, 100 point, 120 point, or 110 point Storm Talon as, if you have 2 of them, 3 of them, whatever, 1, its value just got a lot better.
Taking a bare bones Storm Talon it's already one of the best pointed flyers. I mean, taking 1 bare bones in your list now has total added benefits, man. I love that.
Yep, and there's different ways to get it. And now another thing to talk about too is there's this thing called the air superiority detachment, which the compulsory is 1 flyer wing, and you can get a flyer wing actually 2 different ways. A flyer wing is basically pulled from your army list. You're like, yo, this flyer, and this flyer is a flyer wing. You just notate it. They have to be the same faction.
You have to have at least 2 flyers?
Or excuse me, they don't have to be the same faction. They do for this detachment. So a flyer wing is basically at least 2 flyers. That's the minimum flyer, air quotes, wing out there. Now, another way you can take it is if you field the data sheet out of this book, you take 1 flyer, and then it says maybe upgraded to a flyer wing with up to X additional whatever's for whatever points.
So it is a detachment though, so I can take a Space Marine army plus a flyer wing, like there's 2 separate detachments?
Yes, you could. Now, what's cool about this is it has this thing called Air Commander, where if the commander is in reserve, you can reroll the dice on the interception subphase, which is dogfighting stuff. We'll get to that. But if you have air superiority, page 58, the commander is in reserve, you can add or subtract 2 from your reserve rolls and negate 2.
Wait, you can add or subtract? So hold on a second. Air superiority, backpedal, just a regular air superiority. I'm allowed to add or minus my reserve rolls?
You can add or subtract. I think it's just you add.
So, because you just said add or subtract.
Well, that's for this one, yeah.
So this wing commander, because that is, so I was about to mention this. Having to go, sorry, continue.
Oh, yeah, for air superiority, it says that basically you choose to add or subtract 1 for your reserve rolls, and your opponent must subtract 1.
Yep.
That's huge, because you know what the strategy is for flyers is they want to come in after the other people's flyers come in. And so that means you can see your roll, and be like, hey, -2, I'm off the table. I want them to come in. Now there's a chance for them to come in before you, so now you can, get the drop on their flyers. Like, so is massively tactical.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. There's so many different levels here. Do I take a flyer like you were saying? Do I try to hedge my bet because I don't want to? This is to reserve rolls. This isn't just to flyers themselves. Like your reserves coming on, your D.
And do you have to choose for everything, or is it like each roll you can make that decision on?
So the blanket reserve thing is everything. Like you get +1, or you get -1 to. Oh well, no, it says 2 reserve rolls. So
yes.
What's grammar there? I think each one, right?
So I mean, like that's.
I'm making a roll. But the cool thing is about the detachment, you can choose to roll 1 dice for all up to 3 fighter wings that can comprise this detachment.
So to me, we definitely need to talk about this a little bit further, get more detail, because like obviously I'm gonna say if I'm trying to come on after you, I'm going to say, you know, all my dudes are coming on at once. Do I get to drop the dice on the table and see it as a 6, or see it as a 5 and say now it's like? Do I get to say like, oh, here's my 3 reserve units, roll them all and say they're all -2 and these ones are +1 or +2? Or do I have to say every time? Like, is there?
My guess is that you would have to make that declaration, because the other way it sounds like an exploit. You know what I mean?
Does. No doubt.
So if you look at the rules for modifying dice rolls on page 8 of the main rulebook, I think you.
But okay, with the warlord trait, do you because you have a warlord trait where you give -1 to the enemy's reserve rolls? Is that per roll?
What I do is whenever I get that warlord trait and I have like 3 units of cultist reserves, I roll all 3 of my dice because I get to reroll my own successful or fails. I roll all my dice, and if I get 1 on and 2 off, I will always try to reroll the 1 on to be an off. I don't ever roll them individually. Like, that's the way I've played it. People have accepted it. Nobody ever looks at me sideways like I did something wrong. You know what I mean? I've been doing that for years. So that way
but that's why I feel like if somebody gives you like a comm relay or something, gives you a bonus to reserve rolls, that's not per roll. That's per, you know, for that you get +1 for your reserve rolls.
You get to reroll. You get to reroll, so it's a little different. That's why I feel.
Okay, so here's what GW says about modifying dice rolls on page 11, main rulebook. Now there are some different sections about, like for instance, modifying characteristics on page 8, and then also rolling to hit and rolling to hit in combat is a different section where it says that ones always fail. But in this section, it says roll the dice and add or subtract the number given to or from the roll as appropriate to get the final result. For example, d6 + 2 means roll a dice and add 2 to the number on the dice for a total between 3 and 8. You may be told to roll a number of dice in one go, which is written 2d6, 3d6, etc. Roll the indicated amount of dice and then add them together. And then it talks about multiplying by a certain amount, which doesn't pertain to here. So I feel like...
You know, I'm changing my mind now.
Yeah.
I'm reading this and I'm thinking you're right, because I'm rereading it and it says, you know, a player with air superiority can choose to add or subtract 1 from their reserve rolls, and their opponent must subtract 1 from all of their reserve rolls. So to me, that means the first part of that sentence is individual rolls. You get to choose 1 or negative. The other part says all.
That's a strong fucking rule.
Yeah, so that's huge. So bring flyers, y'all.
Well, even better because it affects your whole army, not just your flyer rolls. To me, it's like, so you have 2 storm talons and you have this detachment now. Like, so like obviously, you know, Haspel plays his Grey Knights now. He's going to bring in a storm talon detachment, and he's going to have a wing commander, special rule, whatever it is, where he gets this new rule. Let's say he holds like, you know, 2 squads of Terminators in reserves, and the 2 storm talons. He can say, he can say, here's my 2 Terminators, here, and I'm rolling both my Storm Talons in one roll. Storm Talons, you know, he rolls a 4 on that, and he rolls like a 4 and a 4 on his, or 4 and a 2 on his Terminators. He's like -2 to this success here. This other one is a fail, so both Terminators stay off the table, and you know, +2 to these Storm Talons that come on the table, or the reverse. He like that to me is incredibly strong for people who use like reserve tactics. This is really strong also for Eldar. Like, don't get it twisted. Eldar with a shitload of jet bikes they hold in reserves to win the game in the last turn, that can continuously put -2 on the jet bikes and have just an investment of 2 Eldar flyers or whatever.
Yeah, that can have D weapons themselves.
Like, to me, that's really strong. Just like negatives, like roll them all, and let's say you roll real hot this one phase, and like, you know, your 5 jet bike squads, you roll like a 5, a 5, a 5, and a 2 and a 2. You're like, okay, you know, +2 to everyone's rolls. They all come on this turn instead of piecemeal. You know, instead of the reverse. Like that, to me, that is incredibly powerful, incredibly tactical. Now you got me thinking about how to utilize that in my games.
Yep, I mean it's pretty interesting tech here, I feel like, as far as that goes. Now, some other special rules that we should definitely talk about. I'm not sure how we're running on time here, but so we talked about break turns. That's very important. Now, the different flyer roles: attack, flyer, bomber, and fighters. So attack flyers Zuni flyers with a fighter combat role can choose whether or not to enter Skyfire mode at the start of each shooting phase. So basically, like flyers used to work, now it's only restricted to fighter combat role. Okay? If they do, all weapons they fire are treated as having Skyfire special rule, etc. Flyers with the fighter combat role suffer a -1 penalty to ballistic skill on their characteristic when targeting ground targets. So there are some instances, like we saw with the Nephilim jet fighter, where it does have strafing run, so it's -1 +1, right? But it is what it is. You just gotta.
But it doesn't have on the flip side, does it have improved ballistic skill against sky targets?
Right, it would be able to get Skyfire.
Well, I mean, does it go ballistic skill +1 when it shoots another flyer?
Now, that's an interesting another point to make, too, because as we go through the special rules here, that you can take the flyer wing, the attack patterns, and that affects flyers differently. Like for attack flyers, it gives you +1 against ground targets and 1 to saving throw jinx, right? Well, the one at the front of the pattern, it's kind of like one flyer next to another flyer, kind of like in a 45-degree angle kind of thing. But the fighter gets +1 ballistic skill against air targets. Now, they define air targets, interestingly enough, as let me run you down the list here. Flyers, skimmers, jet bikes, flying monstrous creatures, and flying gargantuan creatures are all air targets. Everything else is a ground target.
Yeah, them lumping in that jet bike is huge.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, oh, I guess that's why LR jet bikes move so fast. They're flyers.
They fly. So to clarify, Rob, if I'm playing the detachment, I get improved ballistic skill against the flyer targets.
No, not detachment. Okay, well, kind of. So if you take the detachment...
If I go in that abreast formation, I can improve my ballistic skill versus...
Yes.
And that's all flyer wings?
Yeah, so basically every flyer wing, when they end their movement phase, if they are set up in one of these attack patterns, they get special rules for that.
Right. And that is...
For being in that pattern.
That only applies to a flyer wing, and you can, and there's those 2 different ways to take flyer wings that we talked about. So that would apply. And remember that detachment, you can have up to 3 flyer wings in it, but only 1 is compulsory. So it makes it easy to kind of.
So you know what? Honestly, that is a blanket nerf to flyers. If basically fighter rule, you're saying has basically a negative to ground targets, kind of as a blanket statement, when they currently had no negatives. But if they restrict themselves to a certain pattern, they can maintain their abilities. Like, that's cool that they have a pattern and everything. But now you're telling me that, like, if I took one Nephilim jet fighter, it used to hit ground targets on 2s. Now it hits them on 3s. If I took one of anything, so we got a lot of bonuses here and a lot of free special rules. But this right out the gate, this is the first negative I've seen when compared to how we used to play.
Yeah.
Well, this is from a sales standpoint at that point. You know what I mean? Because once you start getting into the bigger formations where you can take like 4, and it really starts being beneficial because you take 4 and you end in a completely line abreast, completely in a linear fashion. They get preferred enemy your choice for the whole entire battle. And then you form up next turn in a square.
What? So if you take 4 individual flying wings, which is a minimum 8 flyers?
No.
4 flyers. One
four
flyer
flyers.
is composed of 4 flyers.
Right.
Okay. So 4 flyers, they come on the table in this one time and have free preferred enemy the whole game. Okay, I can see it. Now we're back. I can GW back to their mischief.
Right. And then you go and you kick it from that. You kick it over and you put them in a square pattern. Now you have the combination of multiple other flyer attack patterns applied. So now you just picked up a bunch of modifiers. So it starts to get...
We should caveat that, too, that they get preferred enemy against that unit type. So in the book, it specifically says, like, you get preferred enemy against, for example, a DACA jet. So they would have preferred enemy against DACA jets.
Well, unit or unit type?
That let's see. It says
preferred enemy special against a unit or any other units that use that same data sheet.
So unit and unit type to answer your question.
So you can say unit type flyer, unit type infantry, unit type.
No, not unit type like infantry or unit type flyer. basically that unit. So if it's a DACA jet, you get preferred enemy against DACA jets.
If it's if I say Space Marine Tactical Marines, I wouldn't have it against the Scouts.
Right. You'd only have it against Tactical Marines.
I mean, it still is. There's still play
It's still
there.
good, but it's still not as. I see where your head was at, Kenny.
Now when you jack up and you go into the square formation, you get a 4-up invulnerable save. It will not die, and all the weapons on the flyer have the interceptor special rule.
What if you already had it when I died? Is there any additional bonus?
No.
I mean, it makes me happy because, like, I have a lot of 4 Helldrake lists that are hard to play because you have to play like double CAD and stuff like that, and you can't ally with yourselves. But now I can just take a wing of 4 Helldrakes, squeeze them in there.
Yeah.
Now my 4 Helldrakes come on.
Mm-hmm.
They have preferred enemy, bikes or whatever, or something that I wound on 2 with my Bale Flamer. Now I don't have to use the Demon Forge. I just say I preferred enemy against Space Marines. So you torch all these Space Marines, rerolling your 1s, and then you go after the bikes and use your Demon Forge to reroll all wounds. So like that is to me like to use Helldrakes because they're near and dear to us. That that makes Helldrakes pretty strong.
It makes them really strong.
A good way to think about the wings, just so people can grasp their heads around it, is your flyers still behave independently, but the wings are telling you if you basically put them in coherency, you know what I mean, then they get these benefits. That's kind of a shorthand for what the wing is.
They're not a
flyers
squadron.
are not a squadron. They can still move and do whatever they want, but if you choose to keep them in coherency like a squadron, they benefit from these as long as they're in
every formation, like every pattern, every formation you choose has kind of a different
bonus
involved.
And plus, you have a sergeant now. You have a sergeant jet, your wing leader, and there's a faction chart, a D3 chart for each faction that gives them possibly the thing itself a bonus.
So wait, obviously we've been talking for a while and everything, but since we've been talking about Helldrake so much, tell us the Chaos faction bonus chart.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Also, I think you're thinking about it wrong, Kenny, because the chaos guys have their own data sheet, but these attack wings are not limited to a faction. They're any flyers that take up these kind of positions get these bonuses.
Well, yeah, if you take the detachment, they have to be the same faction. But if you just
and I'm just using it with the realm of how many times I try to make a 4 Helldrake list and I can't make it work because you can only make 4 Helldrakes work with 2 CADs.
You can do that now.
But now I can take a CAD and 4 Helldrakes in this detachment.
No, you don't even. Oh well, you could take a CAD with 1 Helldrake, like just a fast attack, and then you could take the detachment. You could take 3 based off the data sheet in this book for a total of 4.
Right, and so I'm saying before I had to take 3 Helldrakes. You can't ally with the same faction, so I couldn't take the cheap route. I had to always take another HQ and another 2 troops, and now it's like okay, I could finally do 4 Helldrake lists, and now I got this whole new thing how that interacts. Imagine if you took Typhus, hundreds of zombies, a Cycloptic Cabal, and 4 Helldrakes, and now my 4 Helldrakes can turn 90 degrees during their movement and get this preferred enemy that's trying to come in and do all these combos. I want to know now what my Helldrake in charge can do.
Well, before we get to that, I want to throw something else out there too. You could have another CAD. You could have I don't know, just throw it out there. Say Necron Scythes. You could also have a wing. It couldn't be part of that detachment, but you could have that in your flyer wing if they could form up and be within 6 inches of each other based on your allies.
Based on your ally matrix, you can have. Okay, that's cool. So
but you cannot do that if you take the wing detachment. They have to all be the same formation.
Okay, yeah. That's tight. So obviously to narrow the focus so we don't go all over the place, that's why we'll just keep talking about Chaos since we just had so much success with Best Heretical. We had 4 Helldrakes.
We did.
So, I'm really interested.
It's funny because each faction here, it's like Dark Eldar wing leaders, Eldar wing leaders, and then you get to the Chaos and it's like Helldrake wing leaders. I guess they're not coming out with any Chaos flyers anytime soon. So on a D6 roll of 1 to 2, you get Warped Fury. The wing leader can use the Demon Forge special rule every turn rather than once per battle.
Sick.
3 to 4 is fueled by murder. If an attack this wing leader makes causes an enemy model to be removed as a casualty, its weapons have the twin link special rule in the next shooting phase.
So it has multiple ways to become to basically reroll wounds over and over again with this flamer.
And my head is just still can't get wrapped around. Like, I love the modifier to reserve rolls. Basically, you're getting all 4 on turn 1.
We could roll for that.
Excuse me, on turn 2, yes.
Yeah. First, yeah. So that's a big problem when we play those Helldrakes, and when they didn't come on or they came in piecemeal. You know how many games me and Juice like almost couldn't pull points down because we were waiting until turn 4 for our Helldrakes to come in piecemeal. Well, we need both right now to win this game. Now you're like, I need all 4 in one roll plus 2 of my reserve rolls right now. This is huge. Boon.
Huge.
And then remember, that stacks with other reserve mechanics too.
Yeah.
The last one, 5 to 6, Icon of Slaughter, add 1 to pursuit value for the wing leader and all other models from its flyer wing during the dogfight phase. Which, I guess, if we got a second
that means
here,
potentially some people swear by the autocannons that the Helldrakes can get. They get like a twin link 4-shot strength 8 autocannon is the other option. Now all of a sudden there's play there. If you're talking preferred enemy, twin linked, pursuit value for dogfighting, you might, there is definitely an argument to be made that the flamer is not the only one that matters now. Especially if you can break 90 degrees.
Yeah, it's so different though too, because template weapons now can hit other flyers.
if they're fired with Skyfire, yeah.
Yeah.
So now, most flyers are armor 10 or 11. Now Storm Raven's a little different, but like you're saying, I can get side armor on Talons or, stuff like that.
Yeah, no doubt. This is universe. So I'm really happy so far with these flyer rules. So tell us, in the dogfight phase, what is pursuit value?
I'm going to defer to Haspel on that one.
So I'm going to start at the beginning. First of all, I need to say that, in my opinion, it depends how the competitive, the tourney guys embrace this supplement or not. But this almost feels like a mandatory book, to me, anyway. There are so many new rules in this that it feels like if you don't have this, you're at a colossal disadvantage. As far as knowing what you're going to face. But the dogfight phase is a new phase that's going to happen. It takes place at the start of each game turn, essentially before the reserve rolls. So flyers that are in reserves or whatever, they can choose to dogfight if you want to, and it's like night fight in the sense that if only one player wants to fight a dogfight and the other does not, you got to roll off for it, and the winner decides if the dogfight takes place. It is turned into a sequence of play, 4 new sequences, an interception subphase, an engagement subphase, a maneuver subphase, and an attack subphase. And what you do in each one of these subphases, you basically hold a dice in your hand, and you're looking for the numbers 1, 2, or 3. And there's a chart in each subphase for the engagement tactics, and each number corresponds to the tactic that you're going to do. So you would put the attacker you're going to roll off to decide who is the attacker or the defender, and there are modifiers for that and everything in the rules. But you're going to hold a die in your hand and you're going to choose 1, 2, or 3, and that's going to say what tactic you're going to do. So, for example, in the engagement tactics table, the defender's choices for 1, 2, or 3 are 1, head for the clouds; 2, loop; 3, dive. The attacker for 1, 2, or 3 does track, climb, or pursue. And so you look at this little table and you say, okay, well, if the attacker decided to use number 3, which is pursue, and the defender used number 2, which is loop, you check the matrix and it says the defender is the winner. So the defender won that little subphase. And then you move on to the next subphase, which also has a maneuver tactics table, and so on until you resolve what happens, and it has a whole matrix for how you do damage in dogfights, and that what happens if a flyer suffers a crash and burn result. So what's interesting is that right now, say somebody takes a wing that's very powerful. and you're like, man, I don't need Kenny's 4 Helldrakes coming on the table. That would ruin my day right now. I really don't need that to happen. I'm going to absolutely want a dogfight, especially if I have fighters, because I might shoot down 1 or 2 of those Helldrakes before they even make it to the table, which could be
a good point.
Very beneficial. So it's almost like the dogfight rules, they do say they're optional, but it's almost like mysterious objectives. That one time that you say, you know what, let's not play with mysterious objectives, and then the guy brings an 8 flying monstrous creature thing, and you're like, man, I could really use a Skyfire Nexus right about now.
But I know we touched on it. I honestly believe, or we touched on it a little bit in the webcast, but I believe that most TOs will probably go away from. I mean, they already don't give us, with every supplement out there, every book, every data sheet out there, they still don't allow fighter aces. So I would still probably kind of lead towards, I don't think this dogfighting is going to be that big a deal in the tournament scene.
You're right. TOs love to cut things out that slow the game down,
In the short term, I think you're right. I think eventually it's going to creep in there.
Yeah, you're right. That's a solid point, because over time almost everything is creeped back into the game.
You also have to think too, like in this month, well, I guess this is May, and last month we had Angels of Death, but in a month's time, 30 days, past, we've had 2 supplements to pick up that have changed the game, literally. So, I could see where a lot of people... What's that?
No, you're absolutely right. This is a lot to absorb.
Plus an FAQ.
Dude, I'll be honest, man. I'm glad we're not running a tournament anytime soon. I'll say that.
True.
I do not wish that on anyone. I'll be quite honest, but man, this is some really, like Cass was saying. I'm really impressed with this book. It's very laid out. There doesn't seem any gotchas. There doesn't seem any things that are like, oh, well, how should it work, or something like that. I feel like it's well written and well thought out for the most part.
Yeah, and we also neglected to mention, because we're concentrating more on like kind of the competitive thing, there is a set of narrative missions campaign in this as well that involve only flyers, where you're basically just dogfighting around the table with these different missions, and they look like they could be a lot of fun.
You also get fighter aces too at the end of one of the missions.
Yeah, you can campaign track your bonuses throughout the course of that'd be a great campaign for a store to run.
Yeah, all this stuff is great if you want to play with your buddies, on Saturday, make it a 4 or 5 hour game, stuff for stores. It's all really good. Jury's out on where we're going to see it in competitive tournament play,
Yeah, I feel that the second that if anybody does allow flyer wings into the game, and you're not bringing a flyer, you're playing on nightmare mode. It's going to be rough.
Yeah. A lot of different variables.
It's like people who run psychic powers versus people who don't. You have this whole phase of the game that people can't interact with, and that's a lot of power there. So I agree with you. I think this is crazy. This is a very exciting set of rules. I'm not going to say that that any of this is OP, but this is definitely more powerful than it once was.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever be like the boogeyman like it was before with the days of Kron.
When it first dropped, when it first dropped, it was a little over the top, but now this is not OP. This is just flyers are baller. Flyers have a place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the best terminology. They have a place now.
I'm perfectly okay with that.
Well, I think we did it, guys.
Yeah, I think we went a little over, but there was plenty of material to cover, and I'm sure there'll be more next week. We can circle back and hit some of the maybe some of the Marine stuff, some of the FAQ stuff that seems to be more pertinent and sticking out. Forge World looks like they might be coming on with some announcements about some new updated flyer rules as well. And plus this weekend is Warhammer Fest as well, so we're going to see all sorts of spoilers and upcoming models and rule sets and all sorts of stuff for going on into the holiday season, November, December kind of time frame there. So it's going to It's going to be an exciting time. If it isn't already exciting, well, it's like weather. Just wait.
Wait 5 minutes. It'll be exciting. We promise you.
Hold on. Come back to us. We can do better.
And if this isn't exciting for you right now, it's like, remember we talked about earlier, Juice. Like, remember the first time you smoked crack?
Yeah.
It's like
Never forget that.
This is like, how many times do you smoke crack that this isn't exciting for you?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like I don't even know what you do for fun anymore.
Besides smoking crack.
Yeah, because clearly that's not enough for you anymore.
Everything escalates. I think we can all agree on that one. Oh my goodness. All right, well, that's it for this one, folks. If you haven't done so already, make sure you head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.
Check out thelongwar.net. Become a member of the Hall of Veterans today for the fastest growing library of wargame related video content, modeling, painting, and playing. Not to mention all the sick discounts I receive from some of our sponsors. TheLongwar.net is committed to bringing hobby back, and we can't do it without you.